Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of AI News, Drama, and Updates. Taking a look every Friday at the biggest headlines in the AI space and following along so you don't have to pay as close of attention. So there's a lot that happened this week. Let's dive right in. I did actually want to start with AI art this week. There were certainly a lot of things that came up, but what we're seeing here is an example of a plugin for Stable Diffusion and Photoshop. And for those of you who haven't been following along as closely, I just wanted to kind of give everyone an idea of how far this has come along and how easily integrated this is. This isn't the only Photoshop plugin that's out there. There's officially supported ones, unofficially supported ones, and there's actually plugins available for things like Krita and I'm sure a number of different photo editing softwares at this point. The open source world is wild. And as you can see, it's not necessarily just prompt-based art. There's a lot of additions, a lot of innovations and things like that going on. One of the things that makes this really unique, though, is the integration, I guess, of ControlNet. Now, I personally haven't used ControlNet in a situation like this, but I've certainly used it on my own outside of Photoshop, and it is an extremely powerful technology. So the idea that this is integrated into photo editing software as well is just amazing. Now, of course, a lot of people have different opinions on what is art, and one of the things that did come up that I wanted to show off here is that there is now a piece of digital AI art in the Louvre. And if you're curious of what that could potentially look like, what it is, this is it, actually. This is Claire Silver's Love in the Fourth Turning. And the price, if I'm reading this right, $62,800 is what it's worth. Of course, art is worth what you would pay for it. So if you are looking at this and saying, I wouldn't pay that, you don't have to. And that's the best thing about art is the people that can afford to pay, $62,000 for a GIF or whatever this is, go wild. I'm not going to stop you, but, it's not worth that to me. Doesn't mean it's not art. Before I clicked on this, I was curious of what it was going to be, if I was going to get a still image, if I was going to see a video or what. I just didn't expect to see this, and I'm not really sure what it is. While I myself am an artist, this isn't exactly my kind of art. This isn't something I personally need to get my hands on, but to each their own. But in an attempt to segue from the opinions of the art world and the opinions of, what other people should do, the Epic Games CEO says that AI companies shouldn't be hoovering up everyone else's art data. Now, who is Tim Sweeney, you might ask yourself? Well, Tim Sweeney is worth $4.7 billion. And you might ask yourself, well, how does he make that money? Where did he get that from, Frank? Well, he made that off of other people's work, which is interesting to have, this type of approach and, be the CEO of a video game company who benefits from other people's work. And then having recently purchased, ArtStation, for example. And my guess is that maybe his recent purchase of ArtStation has something to do with this opinion that he holds. But I mean, clearly Tim Sweeney doesn't have an ethical issue with benefiting from the work of others. That's the only way you can get to a position where you have $4.7 billion. Those of you who have been following me for a little while know I am very opinionated when it comes to the AI art and the AI art space. And I believe that ArtStation's creation and use of the no AI tag and things like that was really just short-sighted and kind of dumb. And more so, I just really believed it was never going to accomplish what they believed it would. Even with the announcement of Stable Diffusion 3.0 and the idea that things are going to still be opt-out versus opt-in, that really doesn't fix a lot of issues or really change much in the AI space. And like we've talked about here, changing future versions, because these versions aren't really different technologies, they're just a different amount of training. It doesn't really change much. The 1.4 model still exists, the 1.5 model will still exist, 2.0, 2.1. And that's just a few of the major Stable Diffusion releases, let alone the Dream Booth variants and all of that other stuff. We talk about things outside of the world of Stable Diffusion. One of the stories that I found this week was that StabilityAI purchased another company. This one caught me by surprise. I hadn't heard of ClipDrop, but from my understanding of the situation, it looks like they do something similar to what Runway ML is accomplishing with video editing and AI generation within the video editing space. And this does make sense with Stability and their Dream Studio idea. Just to briefly recap, StabilityAI doesn't make money from Stable Diffusion itself. Dream Studio is an app that I guess you can purchase into, and you can use that to generate Stable Diffusion graphics. So my best guess is this is an attempt to improve that service. When we talk about companies and services like Runway ML, We're talking about a technology that doesn't really exist yet in a great state. This video P2P kind of breaks down a video into the individual frames and then renders out each frame, tries to keep a coherency between frames. And you're seeing some of the fledgling technologies just now start to come together. It is very impressive. You know, Spider-Man riding a motorcycle or being able to change a dog out at will into a cat or things like that. And you can see that these aren't just the companies that you're familiar with. This is from the Chinese university in Hong Kong, Smartmore, and they're working with Adobe. In my time here covering the AI space, I've seen both national and international efforts. You know, last week we talked about the Israeli company that wants to add faces into things like ChatGPT, and I'd heard a little bit about that earlier this week as well. And this is another tool. It looks really similar to something like Runway, where you're able to use a web interface, live video editing, taking clips, putting a giant series of A100 video cards to work, I'm sure, and using a lot of technologies here that we've covered and talked about in various capacities. Just, we're all putting them together now. We're seeing elements of things like ControlNet, Instruct Pix to Pix, watching these transformers and diffusers come to life, and knowing we're still on the precipice of this technology it's an amazing thought. Generative search, or the integration of AI technology into everything, is the future. We've seen that time and time again. Every week we cover more and more companies that are jumping on the bandwagon. And here we got DuckDuckGo, which is no different. With the addition of generative search into Microsoft Bing, Microsoft was able to take a lot of Google's traffic away. And we're starting to see that now with Microsoft. It literally hurts me to say this, but Microsoft Bing has over 100 million daily active users now, thanks to that chatbot. So no surprise we're seeing DuckDuckGo integrate stuff. We're seeing AI space, seeing things pop up like Find. I've never heard of this, but this is another thing that you can use to AI. We covered one last week called Neva. They're just all over the place now. It's actually really reminiscent of the search engine wars of the past when you had Yahoo and Lycos and Ask Jeeves and just all these different search engines that were all competing for business. So seeing competition heat up could mean good stuff for us as consumers. You know, until it forms a monopoly or something like that. But there is no denying that the future is going to be full of AI. If you're using Slack, like a lot of people are in the work from home type of environment, or just communicating to teammates, things like that, even Slack has a GPT application now. We're even seeing this in Discord, where we've got conversation summaries. I just saw them announce this chatbot that they're going to be integrating, which is just a brilliant idea. You know, I'm sure a lot of people are going to have fun with that. But like we talked about a little bit last week, AI chatbots are going to be everywhere very, very soon. And what was to us maybe novel or special just a few weeks ago might even start to get a little overwhelming in the next few weeks as we see literally every company on the planet develop their own chatbot to throw at you. But just like how the internet threw a huge left hook into the economy and literally everyone had to adapt, generative AI, machine learning, all of that stuff, it's kind of doing the same thing here. So tons of companies, whether you're a billion-dollar company or you're just a small business, they're trying to find ways to make use out of this stuff. We've been able to look at a company and see either how quickly they've jumped on the bandwagon or how they've tried to resist the wave that's pounding against them. We got the companies out there trying to sue to stop this type of change, and the companies that are trying to jump on this stuff and adapt and flow with it. Now, Google is a topic of disappointment for a lot of people. I know I personally had a lot of faith and hope that Google had something up its sleeve to fight the ChatGPT threat or the Bing threat. But it seems like Bard is kind of just a flop, and Lambda is not really as, sentient as people would want you to believe. Now, seeing article titles like this are even less promising, where they're trying to pull out the Google Plus playbook. But what this translates into is essentially Google is telling everyone, okay, generative AI needs to be in everything, like right away. Just like how we all of a sudden started seeing those stupid little Google Plus ones everywhere all the time. They're trying that same thing, but now with generative AI. So Google is going real hard, real fast, and we may see a lot of big changes. I'm not sure exactly what this is going to mean because it's going to depend on how well they implement it. And like we've talked about before in previous videos, Google is not always the best with implementation. They've got a few key products that work really, really well, and they've got a lot of products that work terribly. If you are a YouTube content creator, for example, and you need help from Google, you have to use Twitter. So just as an example of how, structurally things don't always make a ton of sense, even when Google is involved and even when they have the funds to more than solve these issues. But shifting gears a little bit into the realm of biotech, Now, we haven't talked a lot about it on the channel, but in the world of health, machine learning is one of those things that can test things out for us. I'll suffice it to say that machine learning opens up new doors for how we can approach vaccines and how we can approach future diseases to potentially prevent things from happening. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Now, this next story is amazing for two different reasons, because we've been able to see a picture of thoughts, and that's an amazing technology in and of itself. And then beyond that, we've got this blurry mind thought picture. We're able to use Stable Diffusion's technology to turn that into a more coherent picture. So that's also amazing. It's almost secondary to being able to pull thoughts from the human mind, right? So you show the person a teddy bear, and then they think of a teddy bear, and then they reconstruct. Now, if somebody sees this and their initial reaction is fear, I can understand that. But you have to understand that there are nonverbal communicators out there. There are people that are paralyzed. There are people that are unable to otherwise communicate. And the idea that we've potentially created a window into the soul of those individuals is mind-blowing. Like a lot of things we talk about here, this is baby technology, so we're going to see it grow up. And hopefully we won't see it get co-opted by the wrong people. And hopefully we won't see it get abused. If it's used for the right reasons, I think this could be absolutely amazing. I wanted to end today's video on a really high note, showing a couple of cool proof of concepts that I did come across. This was an example of somebody using the ChatGPT API for something that was really out of the box. So Unity is a game development engine, and this person integrated ChatGPT so that they could just write code within the Unity development program. So in their game, for example, creating a new shader, which is normally very highly complex, they can just prompt, this is the type of shader I want, and ChatGPT supplies them the code where they can just paste it right into the game. I can attest, this is certainly a time saver. The last thing I want to talk about is multimodal support, which is something Microsoft just announced, something that ChatGPT is going to soon be, maybe not ChatGPT, maybe it'll be other thing GPTs, but we've talked before about how ChatGPT is amazing, but also primitive in a sense that it only does one part of what a brain does. And now we're starting to see it expand. So by connecting it to tools like Midjourney, connecting it to Stable Diffusion, and things that require visual translation. ChatGPT is a form of machine learning that is text to text, but now it's also going to be able to be text to image or image to image. It could be a number of different things. It could technically be as many things as are built into it. And so while you might see this as interesting or fun or useful, this is actually a huge step in the direction of artificial general intelligence, which is the future that Microsoft is very openly saying they're helping to try to build. So I will leave you on that note. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope this answered some questions that you have. If there were any questions left unanswered, feel free to leave me a comment below. If you liked the video, go ahead and leave me a like. If I really angered you, go ahead and hit that dislike button and make sure to let me know. As always, I appreciate those of you who made it to the end of the video. And as always, thanks for watching.